Now let's cross over to Niger State, Niger State, where Chenemi Bamaiyi, a reporter, correspondent, is there to bring us up to speed with what's going on there. Chenemi, good morning. It's good to have you join us. It's a new day now. What's the situation in Niger State with the results coming in?
Okay, good morning. I'm actually reaching you from Kotongora in Niger State.
Oh, you're still in Kotongora. That's fine.
Yes, I'm still in Kotongora. Kotongora is quite far from Niger State. Like I said, or you probably know, Niger State is the largest state in Nigeria with about 76,000 kilometers square. And then so the local governments are quite far from each other, which is why collation of results usually takes time. But right here in Kotongora, results have been collated from the 13 wards, except for one, the central ward. And central ward is quite within the Kotongora metropolis. The results has not been gotten from that ward because of issues of overvoting and then some issues with security. But the collation officer, the electoral officer here said in short time, the results will be gotten and then it will be moved back to Mina. That can take another 5 hours just to get to Mina. So in fact, Kotongora is still not the farthest from Mina, the Niger State capital. We have places like Rijau, which is quite far, places like Aguara. Those places can take about 8 to 10 hours just to get to Mina. So we might have a bit of delay in getting results from those areas.
All right. I recall speaking with you yesterday. You were one of those we spoke to earlier yesterday, monitoring the election and the electoral officials and materials were going out as at the time we spoke. And you also told us that some polling units in about 5 local governments, election will not be conducted there due to issues of security. Now, let's talk about security challenges generally. I wonder how the average resident of Niger State feels generally when it comes to going to vote. Do they feel secure, even beyond the local governments where voting didn't take place?
Okay, for Niger State in particular, voting is usually done peacefully. It's part of the voting culture that the people believe that they need to be a part of this in electing their leaders. If you have issues anyway, it's majorly because maybe there's a low turnout, but not specifically because of security, especially in Mina metropolis and then in other areas where insecurity has not affected. Okay, so something that you should know about the security situation in Niger State is that it's affecting only a handful of local governments, not everywhere in Niger State. So long there's no problem in your region, it is safe for you to go out to vote. For example, Niger State is divided into 3 senatorial districts: Niger North, Niger East, and Niger South. Security issues and these senatorial districts are divided into Zone A, Zone B, and Zone C. Over time, it is the Zone B and Zone C axis that has had security issues. Some local governments in those areas, Zone A, which is where most of the vote comes from during the election, is relatively peaceful with no security challenge, But in areas of Zone B has been the worst hit. The local government, the 5 local government that I said elections would not hold, where they had polling units where elections would not hold, were all from Zone B, except for like 2. I think 3 of them are from Zone B, then 2 are from Zone C. So I said that to say basically that that security is not a major hindrance to people voting because it's just a handful of those communities that are being affected. So people turn out to vote, but of course, like we've seen in other places, the turnout wasn't as much as expected. I don't know. For example, from the polling units that I covered yesterday, there were some people came out, but from other part of the state, we experienced low turnout. Because when they started in the morning, we felt like probably people were just still relaxing in their houses. But after time, we saw that so many unused ballot papers were cancelled because people really didn't come out to vote. So comparing the number of people that were registered and those that actually voted, and the number was quite low compared to that of the presidential election.
Yes, you talk about voter turnout. Of course, there are concerns regarding the low turnout of voters. What could be responsible for this? I know you have engaged with people. What are the concerns and what factors are responsible for this voter turnout, the low voter turnout?
Well, I think probably people felt like the presidential election was where they were really interested in, not knowing that generally there's issue with poor turnout in the urban areas. If you want to get good turnout, it's actually in the rural areas. So in the urban areas where the turnout was poor, but when you get results from the rural areas, it was a bit better. So what could be responsible for that? I think sometimes it's just the voting culture for the people. The sheer just the laxity sometimes, because from the people that I spoke with, there's a particular polling unit that I visited yesterday. As early as 8 o'clock, voting had commenced. And when I spoke with the people, they said the last time that they came out to vote that there was issue with the beavers machine and they don't want that to repeat itself. But for other areas, we noticed that some people actually did the voters register. People had their voters registration not because they really want to vote. It's just for them to have the voters card as another piece of document or identification. So I think it's those issues that play around, especially in the urban areas. But when you go to rural areas, people actually come out to vote sometimes.
All right, talk to us about the beavers. How, from the areas you monitored, we hear that beavers worked in a lot of places, and it was kind of an improvement when it comes to beavers not functioning in some places. Comparing it with the presidential election, a lot of persons said it was an improvement where the functionality of the beavers. What did you monitor? Was it better from areas that you saw?
Oh yeah. The beavers machine actually performed better yesterday. During the presidential election, the major issue that prompted the malfunctioning was logging in, and then over time, the engineers that were around those localities or the technicians were able to fix that. But this time, I guess INEC took proper note of that, and there was no issue with logging in, which was the major problem. Not even power, because I felt like probably with the poor power supply in some areas, we're going to have, when the beavers machine run out, it's going to be hard to bring it. But all that wasn't a challenge. There were power banks as extra power source for it. So from the start, from the polling units that I monitored yesterday, from the get-go, beavers machine were working and an accreditation. So there was no problem with that. It actually functioned better yesterday. In fact, polling ended quite early yesterday in a lot of polling units that I monitored, and like I earlier shared, it's because of the low turnout of voters. So the beavers machine were there, people were waiting, the electoral officials were there waiting to get people, and then by like before 2 o'clock, and some polling units, voting had ended because there was nobody on the queue again. So for the beavers machine, I think INEC did a good job in ensuring that that the problems were rectified.
All right, talk to us about women. We have come to see how impactful women have been when it comes to the numbers on the queues to vote. What was the turnout of women like from areas that you monitored?
In every election, I don't know, women usually have the numbers, and that's why contestants usually target the women in their campaigns. Somehow they have they're more courageous to come out and vote, or maybe it's easy to convince them, probably. Here around Kotongura, the women actually came out to vote. In fact, the women were willing to even speak with you. They were more willing to speak with you as a journalist more than the men, and they were ready to express themselves, to share their concerns. And in fact, in the polling unit yesterday, like INEC had stipulated, we had queues for the women. And when you look at the queues, I wish I had some visuals to show you right now. When you look at the queues, you realize that the queues for the women were actually longer. And they were excited to come out and vote. And you would want to think that the men should take the lead because probably they're the heads of their homes. But I think in northern Nigeria, it's quite different, where you don't get to see maybe women participating in a lot of outdoor conversations, but when it comes to voting, especially in rural areas, women turn out en masse to vote. And yesterday was just another proof of that.
It's quite interesting to know because in some of the places the visuals that came in from parts of the north yesterday, we saw lines for women differently, we saw lines for men differently, and we saw a very long queue of the queues for women, and it was quite interesting, and it's a good thing. We see women participate. The call, generally, the advocacy is for women to begin to be the contestants and not just the voters, and so on. Now, talk to us about general satisfaction of those who voted with the entire process. We hear of, in some parts of the country, some people said the process wasn't okay, there were irregularities here and there were voter intimidation and so on. But from areas that you covered and monitored, what did you see? Did the people feel satisfied with the entire process of the voting yesterday?
All right, Mike, before I talk about the voter satisfaction, let me talk about the fact that, like you rightly said, that it's not just okay for women to be part of the electorate or part of the voters. Can we have them as contestants, which I think it's a major issue where we should look at. In the Niger State House of Assembly, no political party fielded a female candidate. In the outgoing House, only one woman was represented, and which is quite unfortunate because you're going to have men discussing women issue. I'm quite particular about that and saying I don't think a lot has been done in that area. Sensitization is happening, but how about giving them opportunity? How about giving them a leverage? How about giving them a stepping stone? How about creating a platform where they would have that, they would be able to have an edge? Let's say if the House of Assembly say we are giving, even if it's 20 or 30% space to the women, I think it will be better. So all political parties would need to go back and look for how they can get women. But right now, in the next House or in the next within the next set of parliamentary leaders in Niger State, we are not going to have any woman, which is quite it's quite disturbing for me. So talking about voter satisfaction, people were okay with the process. Their concerns, especially in the urban areas where that people didn't turn out to vote. In fact, you could see on social media that people were beginning to use their platforms to call out people to come and vote. I mean, encouraging people to come and vote. But for those that were on ground to vote, they were okay with the process. They didn't need to queue for so long. The counting was okay, and then and something of note to speak about also is the cooperation of the party agents to be able to say to be able to agree on whether a particular ballot should be accepted if let's say the thumbprinting smeared on any of on the lines, you know, for them to easily agree and say, okay, we can take this or we shouldn't take that, and then that on its own was able to ensure that the results were properly counted at the polling units, which is where the problem usually comes from. If the party agents are finding it difficult to agree on ballot papers to be accepted, it actually causes the party supporters around there, it incites them or it stirs them up sometimes to violence. But from the areas I monitored yesterday, there was this cooperation within them just to ensure that peace reigns.
All right. Before I let you go, you mentioned the issue of women participation. I'd like to have a picture of how conscious the average woman is when it comes to political consciousness and all that kind of level of awareness, and how ready or passionate women are in leadership in Niger State. How would you assess, how would you describe the level of political consciousness of the average woman in Niger State?
I think there are women that are very much interested in political leadership. The consciousness level generally in the North is rising, not as it used to be before, where women are usually reserved and kept away from public activities. The consciousness level is increasing. But the problem is getting the opportunity. There's just one female gubernatorial candidate in Niger State, and from our party, you could see that they are doing all that they can to ensure that they put her ahead. But when we look at the major political parties, I mean, what stops people from having at least having females as their running mates or from having women as their running mates. You can't say that there are no qualified women around. We have a lot of them in the political space. For example, in Niger State, the chief press secretary is a woman to this present governor, and she was actually being tipped to be a running mate for one of the candidates. But the opportunity was turned down, and areas like, for example, the House of Assembly. So if we're not giving opportunity to women in place like in positions like the governorship positions, what happens to the House of Assembly? Even when it comes to, I think it even begins from the political appointees. How many of them are women? How many of them are women in the Niger State? We have barely maybe 20% of the commissioners as women, and what positions are they even occupying? The positions that they occupy again gives them an opportunity to be able to grow their political career. But the portfolios that they are being given, it's not. Some of them are not quote and unquote very big portfolios that will push them up. You know what I'm saying? And even amongst not even the commissioners, looking at other political appointments like maybe special assistants to the governor, how many are women? Are these women available? Yes, they are available. The problem is they are not being given the opportunity. And I think if we could have, let's say, apart from just promises to say of a candidate saying we're going to give X number of X percentage of the political appointments to women. Apart from that, if it is entrenched in the law, I think it will go a long way to ensure that women get a space. In northern Nigeria, like I said, even from the education generally, women education used to be a problem in northern Nigeria. But right now, when you go to the campuses, it's all replete with women. For example, my school, I attended Ahmadu Bello University. The hostels that we used to have in the school, I went back there recently and I saw that even the male hostels are being converted to female hostels. The largest hostel in the university, which is about one of the largest hostels in sub-Saharan universities in Nigeria, the Suleiman Hostel, has been converted to a female dormitory. So it means the awareness is growing. People are being enlightened. It wasn't so before. When I came to school, we had just 2 female hostels, but now there are about 4 female hostels. So it means the awareness is growing. But where we are right now is where we need to give the opportunity, where we need to give them opportunity. So I think it's a journey. But I wish this journey can be fast-tracked.
All right, Chenemi Bamaiyi, thank you so much for letting us know how the situation is and the perspectives from Niger State. We'll certainly keep a tab on how the process is going, especially when the results collation at the INEC headquarters in Mina begins. And